Hello, welcome back to Marathon Man, where I go through Doctor Who from the very beginning, and you join me at what could possibly be one of Doctor Who's most miraculous stories ever. Still photographs, hazy imaginings of what Troughton frolicking on the beach must have looked like, sighing at a CG salamander going underground again and wishing I was watching it for real instead, marvelling at Troughton talking to himself as two different characters and being desperate for even just that one scene to turn up. Those are pretty much still my memories of The Enemy of the World, that and thinking it wasn't as bad as I'd been told. Because when I first went into that story, I was under the impression it was going to be a little bit rubbish, and then I was pleasantly surprised to find out that it wasn't. And I enjoyed it again on subsequent viewings, even though, yeah, I did grow a little bit tired of that little CG salamander, and at my own measly imagination having been the only means I had of bringing that story to life. But then, in October 2013, sure, 10 whole years ago, and if fans were still holding out hope for missing episodes to be found here or there, I think it's safe to say that most of us have given up hope on entire stories turning up again. And so when this one and the next story were found and mostly found respectively, it was a little bit unbelievable, which was made all the more so by them being made available on iTunes that very night. Oh, the soul searching I did in those few hours. See, when the news came that The Enemy of the World had been found, I was doing a Doctor Who marathon, but I was nowhere near the Troughton era. I think I was in the mid to late 70s. So to go back and watch this story that I had always wanted to be able to, and now could, would be to break sequence. And I was watching Doctor Who in order from the beginning because I felt like that's the best way to do it. Still do. Earlier on, during that particular marathon, which was 2 marathons ago now, I made the decision to always watch Doctor Who that way from now on, unless a brand new episode aired. And I'd become very firm in my opinion that Doctor Who is best watched in context and in order, so to break the sequence would feel wrong. Like doing the truncated version of Marco Polo on the Edge of Destruction DVD, or eschewing episodes 2 and 3 of The Ice Warriors in favour of the 15-minute reconstruction that combined the two. Like, I'd feel dirty. No one else would know, but I would know. So, despite every ounce of my being urging me to sign in at midnight and avail myself of this long-thought destroyed slice of Doctor Who, I resolved to continue with my watch-through without breaking sequence, something that I couldn't quite believe I was doing. See, Sylvester McCoy might have been my first Doctor, but ever since I first saw him, Patrick Troughton was always my favourite Doctor as a child. So to be able to see 9 more episodes of him, which I'd long thought would forever be impossible, was more than I'd ever dared to hope for, and yet here they were. So while not an easy choice, I made the decision to only come to The Enemy of the World and The Web of Fear when their turn came on the next marathon. And it's also worth pointing out that at the time, The Web of Fear was my most wanted missing story to be recovered. Even just one more episode of it, and all of them except for episode 3 were there. So I think that goes to show that waiting to watch The Enemy of the World and The Web of Fear until the next marathon that I did, when I was still only on Tom Baker at the time, that could be the biggest display of willpower I have ever shown in my entire life. Which wasn't until 3.5 years later. And I sat down to watch Doctor Who with the same giddy level of excitement as little me did when he first saw Sylvester McCoy, slightly bigger me did when Paul McGann lit up the telly for that one glorious night, or when University me found out that we were actually really properly going to be getting an actual real proper 9th Doctor finally. I mean it, I hadn't been that excited to watch Doctor Who since 2005. So why is it the recons that are still the overriding memory of the enemy of the world for me? Well, it's because I genuinely do only watch Doctor Who in order now, except when a new episode airs. And so this means that this marathon, this time, was only genuinely the second time I'd ever watched the enemy of the world. One of the things which I had often thought about the enemy of the world was that a lot happens in it, which means that it actually always comes across quite well as a reconstruction. It's such a rich production and so dynamic that it really does zip along, making far better use of its 6 episodes than any story in Troughton's run so far. It doesn't run out of steam in episode 4, as so many tend to, partly down to the introduction of the people trapped underground. Now, this reveal and the point at which it comes in the story is a very good move. We have a new setting, a new bunch of characters, and a new impetus. But it's also organic to everything we know about Salamander up to this point. We've seen Salamander be the bastard that he is before now, but this is another level bastard, keeping hopeful people trapped beneath the surface pretending to be their saviour. It's quite a sharp left turn, but deftly manoeuvred. It gives the Bond villain his Bond villain lair. This is Doctor Who as a Bond film, and with the Doctor playing the hero instead of James Bond, we're given an entertaining spin on both the Bond formula and the Doctor Who formula. Season 5 has acquired something of a cookie-cutter reputation, and yet this story, which is unlike any other really, lies right in the middle of it. As something of a departure for Doctor Who, it reminds us, through being a really good and fun one, that Doctor Who can pretty much be anything. You can plonk the Doctor down in almost any type of story. A breath of fresh air, a new type of story for the show to attempt, and if I may be so bold, probably the first solid gold classic of the Troughton era. That the man can act and that he has been consistently turning in a beautiful performance as the Doctor has never been questioned by me. But here he gets his biggest opportunity to shine and he accepts it as calmly as if it were a cup of tea. And the man's so justifiably cocky, he even asks for a biscuit. He has a very effective way of changing his eyes when flitting between Salamander and the Doctor, crafting a separate but no less convincing character for these 6 episodes. That would be enough, that would suffice. But Troughton actually does something else as well. Because when the Doctor is pretending to be Salamander, well, that's another performance entirely, and I would argue essentially makes 3 roles for Pat. He doesn't just give us 1 excellent performance in this story, he gives us 3. The Doctor tricking Kent at the end is sublime. Not only is the reveal that Kent was in on the whole thing from the beginning a good one, it's also really satisfying that he's caught out by his own ruse of the Doctor impersonating Salamander. When Troughton's 2 characters finally come together at the end of this story, it's even better than I ever thought it could be from watching the reconstruction. Honest to goodness chills it gave me. A scene which I had always wanted to see but never could came to exist in my own mind, which refused to imagine anything beyond what it thought could have been achieved in late 1960s BBC television production. I did it a disservice because it's brilliant. And because prevailing memories of this story are still through the reconstructions, I hope that subsequent viewings of this story still give me those chills. I hope that watching this story always feels a little bit magic, because coming back in its entirety in 2013 still feels outrageously unlikely. As the Doctor tries to prove his companions are telling the truth to Bruce by letting Jamie and Victoria think that he's Salamander, it's a lovely scene, and really highlights just how excellent Jamie and Victoria actually are. Defiant, brave, and utterly unwilling to stand down. They have become easily my favourite crew since Vicky, Ian, and Barbara. Just how wrong I'd historically been about Victoria continues to surprise me. In a story where neither of the companions are shortchanged, they can both demonstrate their considerable chemistry with each other and with the Doctor. Jamie gets stuck in trying to overthrow a powerful world leader, like he does, good old Jamie, and Victoria gets sent to work in the kitchen. Alright, I'm being facetious. Her being sent to the kitchen might skirt the area of her being shortchanged, but she more than makes up for it elsewhere. And even then, the kitchen stuff is delightful. I love Griffin the chef, always have. Wearily dispensing pills of wisdom like,
I'm going out for a walk. It'll probably rain.
And,
how's the food? Terrible. Terrible. I'll get the sack tonight, I swear I will. Maybe they'll shoot me. I won't have to worry anymore. No, they wouldn't do that. The firing squad would miss me.
His character is evidence of a script which has been taken great care of. Aside from Colin and Mary, I struggle to think of a performance that isn't top-notch. Milton Johns makes Bennick into one of the best baddies we've ever had on the show. Delighting in the prospect of being able to torture Jamie and Victoria, his sliminess and his loathsomeness makes him sit up there for me with villains like Tagana and Tlatoxel. Faria emerges as the strongest role given to a black actor yet, and with The Evil of the Daleks and The Tomb of the Cybermen still fresh in my mind, she is incredibly welcome. Okay, so she does get killed off, but the way she gets killed off, like, she takes it like a champ.
You can't threaten me now, Bennick. I can only die once, and someone's beaten you to it.
It's an outstanding final line for a character in a script that's teeming with fantastic lines. With the story being as it is and its defining characteristic being probably Troughton's dual performance, his work as the Doctor could be in danger of being overlooked. And indeed, it probably was when all we had to go on was episode 3 of 5 reconstructions. But now that I can watch this story with my eyes and not just my ears, I realise he actually does some of his best work as the Doctor in this story as well. From the very beginning, even just sort of like his glee at going for a paddle, he is masterfully entertaining. Then he is brilliance embodied when he's helping treat Astra's wound, and he conveys something of a crush on her. That is lovely to watch. Insisting he has to be 100% sure that he's definitely up against evil, and even when he then is, refusing to assassinate it, is our Doctor through and through. And another one of those little nuggets which occasionally shine through each era of the show to prove that it's still the same one today. The crowning glory of these moments in this story is when he gives Bruce the gun back as a show of faith and trust. The Doctor's goodness ends up towering above everything else. I get it, along with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of fans, I wished this story were back in existence. And then when it was, I waited 3.5 years to watch it, and I've only watched it twice in a decade. But given how recently it come back and how strong my memories are of the reconstructions, of having to make do with them, then I think watching this story is always going to have its own extra frisson. And more than any other one, I think it's a good illustration in my own mind of how different an existing story can be from its reconstructions. So this one, while I always enjoyed the reconstruction, is like it's like far better than I ever thought it could be, which makes me, however unlikely they are, hopeful for even more returns, because they can change what we think about Doctor Who entirely. It's just wonderful, and after 191 episodes, that frisson isn't totally over yet either, because the Web of Fear came back mostly at the same time as this one as well, which means that this marathon is also going to be only the second time that I've watched episodes 2, 4, 5 and 6 of the Web of Fear too. That final scene between the Doctor and Salamander. Right, okay, to pick at the editing at one point. Okay, so we don't need to see Jamie and Victoria get captured, but at one point they make a run for it and then we just cut to them standing still, having been captured again, and it just feels odd. But to be honest with you, I'm just trying to find fault for the sake of having a low light. So, there we go. The enemy of the world will always feel like something of a miracle to me. The longer we go on, the less likely it feels that more missing episodes will turn up. That felt true 10 years ago as well though. Airlock and Underwater Menace episode 2 turning up a couple of years previously gave the impression we'd be waiting even longer for more than we ended up doing. That it was then almost 2 complete serials? The impossible happened, or so it felt. Therefore, watching The Enemy of the World will always be a supremely happy experience. Further improved by it also being absolutely brilliant. As ever, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this dose of double trouble, then you know how YouTube works. Please do give it a like and share it wherever you can. And what do you think of The Enemy of the World? Did having it back show you how brilliant this story was, or did you find it a massive anticlimax? Is the departure from the season 5 formula a breath of fresh air, or do you wish it conformed to the Monster of the Week convention? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you back here soon for our first meeting with a stalwart, beloved character of Doctor Who. So if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button, clang the cloister bell, and I'll meet you on the Piccadilly line.